Now, in the context of the talks between the Commission for ROCOR and the Commission for the Moscow Patriarchy, did either commission retain legal counsel? Did they hire a lawyer?
No.
No? Did the ROCOR Commission consider any secular issues with regard to the formation of the relationship as you've just described it? Did the Commission consider any secular issues in connection with the relationship or future relationship between the Moscow Patriarchy and ROCOR?
I don't understand. No.
Do you understand when I use the term secular?
No. Well, I understand secular, but maybe...
Okay. Is it your understanding, Your Eminence, that the formation of the relationship between ROCOR and the Moscow Patriarchy is consistent with ROCOR's corporate documents?
Do they recognize or...
No. Let me rephrase the question. As you sit here today, do you have an understanding whether the formation of a relationship between ROCOR and the Moscow Patriarchy is consistent with ROCOR's corporate or secular documents?
I think yes.
Okay. And what is the basis of that understanding?
Because this is in documents what they are creating and what they were discussing, this mention about. That this will be not changed.
Okay, and who had that conversation? The Commission?
Commission, yes.
So are you suggesting that the Commission did an analysis, so to speak, of whether the proposed merger had any effect on ROCOR's secular documents? Let me ask it this way. Does the proposed relationship violate ROCOR's certificate of incorporation?
No, we will keep our incorporation like we have it on all our properties. So.
I understand that. My question is this. As you sit here today, Your Eminence, is it your understanding that the relationship between ROCOR and the Moscow Patriarchy violates ROCOR's certificate of incorporation?
Well, no, I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay. But as you sit here today, do you know either way?
No.
Has anyone at ROCOR made such an evaluation?
We are preparing to do so.
You're preparing?
Preparing, yes. We have a lawyer and preparing to do so.
Okay. And who is the lawyer?
Well, the lawyer is Hadji Antic.
Help me out with that.
Hadji Antic. I don't know his spelling.
HADZI hyphen ANT as in Tom ICH.
And that's a man or woman?
Man.
And when was he retained?
Well, in general, I was speaking with him in general, not yet. He's not retained.
Okay, so he hasn't been hired yet.
Not.
Okay. For what purpose are you going to hire him?
Just oversee this what you mentioned, these things, also to say how it might affect all this situation, how it might affect the general at somewhere. Международный закон.
International law.
International law.
Yes.
I see. Okay. So he's being hired.
He's not been hired.
Oh, sorry. He may be hired.
May be hired.
Could you raise his eminence It's his microphone. His hands are blocked. If you want to raise. No, on his.
No, he's going to raise it up on his left.
Sorry for the interruption.
The answer was maybe higher.
Okay. He may be hired for the purpose of reviewing international law?
How this will affect, how we will affect it by the international law.
So one of the things that he'll determine is whether the relationship violates international law?
No, just if from the view of the international law, how we might be hurt or not.
Hurt, you mean that something will be done contrary to it?
No, that they might use against us.
Okay. Who is they?
The MP,
Okay, the Moscow Patriarchy?
yes.
So the concern is that the Moscow Patriarchy may use some aspect of international law in a way that ROCOR does not agree with?
To harm us.
Now, when you say harm, harm in what way?
We will not go along or something.
Who won't go along? ROCOR?
Yes. If we will not go along.
You mean go along with the merger?
Yes. Не понимаете. Если мы поссоримся вдруг, объясним.
Can't take the Russian part now. I'll just let you know. Fingers aren't moving.
Well, what's the basis of that concern?
Might happen, everything.
What might happen?
That we will not go along. We will start to quarrel or something, and so how we
Oh, I see. In case...
oh,
I see. Okay.
Понял,
Okay.
наконец.
You have to forgive me, Your Eminence. Eventually I get there. Sometimes
Okay.
it takes me a little longer.
Thanks God.
But I think I'm here now.
Okay.
So the concern is that to the extent there's a dispute between ROCOR and the Moscow Patriarchy, you would like to know how that dispute would be resolved.
Not a result, but that they were not able to just kill us.
Okay. When you say, you mean take you over.
Yes.
So in the context of the relationship, you have some concern or desire that the relationship be controlled to some extent by ROCOR.
Yes.
Has anything been said or done in the past to give you this concern about the Moscow Patriarchy?
No. So far we had no.
Well, is there something in the past of the Moscow Patriarchy that gives you some concern? No. Nothing comes to mind? What did you mean when you said, kill us?
No, что-то. На что они нас проглотят, объяснимо. I mean that they will not swallow us.
In a sense, take you over. Yes?
Yes.
Is it ROCOR's intent that the Moscow Patriarchy take ROCOR over?
The Moscow Patriarch, what?
Is it ROCOR's intent or desire to have the Moscow Patriarchy take it over?
No, that we desire this?
Yes.
No.
You had indicated previously that in 1980, the Moscow Patriarchate had some kind of association with the, I believe you indicated earlier, with the communist government, the communist authorities.
That's correct.
What was that association?
Well, in our belief, it was just a collaboration with the government.
Okay. And on what do you base that belief?
Well, the fact that the communist government was all bodies, all organizations existing in the Soviet Union were subject to the higher authority, that is the communist authority, and that would include the church.
Okay. Was the church essentially an arm of the communist government?
It may have been.
Would you say it was?
Well, one has to define what you mean by arm of the Soviet government.
When the Soviet government existed, who appointed the bishops? Was it the church or the government?
Well, it would seem that the bishops appointed the bishops, but I'm sure that there was government control in that regard.
Okay. Does the present Moscow Patriarchate have any association with the Russian Federation?
I'm sure they do.
Okay. Do you know what the essence of that association is?
The essence, I'm not sure what the essence is at the present time.
Do you know if it's any different than it was prior to 1992?
Certainly, it's different.
Okay. In what manner?
Well, prior to 1992 or even earlier, I would say prior to 1980, the church was very much, like I said, subject to the authority of the communist government, which was an atheistic government, which obviously meant that they could in no way be supportive of anything the church did or could have done. That was no longer the case after 1991.
How did that change?
Well, obviously through the freedoms that were granted to the church and generally to the people.
Moscow Patriarchate, prior to 1992, did it have churches in more than Russia? Other countries?
Yes.
Okay. What other countries, do you know?
Well, they were scattered all throughout Europe. They have parishes in this country, in South America, in Canada.
Okay. The Moscow Patriarchate, presently, does it have parishes in... Now, have you ever heard that the Patriarchate was involved with the government prior to 1990, the communist government?
Be more specific, what do you mean by involved?
Was he a member of the KGB?
Was the Patriarch a member of KGB?
Yes.
There were rumors to that regard, but and I believe that there are documents, some documents there in existence, asserting so.
Okay. Do you have discussions concerning that issue with regard to this, these talks about the merger?
Sure.
Okay. What were those discussions?
Well, in particular about the Patriarch's membership.
Yes.
Specifically, I don't recall conversations about that particular aspect, but certainly just in general.
In general, concerning what?
Concerning possible ties to that organization.
When was this discussed?
Well, I can't say offhand. I mean, it could have been discussed just at any number of meetings.
Okay. These were official meetings?
I don't recall whether it was at a synod meeting or just in conversations, friendly conversations.
Was the prior status of the Patriarch of Moscow ever discussed at a synod meeting where minutes were taken?
I don't recall.
You had indicated that you had discussed these issues. Who had you discussed them with?
They were discussed just between amongst the bishops.
What bishops?
Well, the bishops that comprise the synod and also the council of bishops.
Can you name the bishops that you remember discussing this with?
Well, I can't remember specifically which bishop it was that may have brought the subject up, but it was certainly discussed as a possible problem.
And to what extent why was it a problem?
Well, because of one's ties to an organization such as the KGB.
And how was that problem resolved?
Well, I would say that on the most part, those bishops that felt that it was time to embark upon talks with the bishops in Russia, they felt that that particular association was mandatory for people in the church in such a high position, and that they had no other sort of choice. But now that the church and the country has become free, we would like to think that the patriarch in question had the opportunity and did indeed repent of his association with that organization.
Now, that was... Okay. Prior to 1991, was the Patriarch of Moscow a member of the KGB or of the Moscow Patriarchate first?
As I said, I don't know whether in fact he was a member of the KGB. I can only go on some of the documents that were referred to, or some of the rumors that were circulating at the time. So I haven't seen myself ever any proof, documented proof, that he was a member of the KGB.
You indicated earlier that you are a member of the Synod.
That's
of
correct.
Bishops. That gives you a vote.
That's right.
Okay. What is your opinion with regard to this matter?
What in particular?
Was the Patriarch of Moscow a member of the KGB or not?
I
Opinion.
would have assumed that he would have been in some way affiliated with the KGB. Yes.
Okay. And would it be, in your opinion, was his affiliation to the KGB, would that come first, or would his affiliation to the Moscow Patriarchate come first?
Well, obviously to the church would come first.
And what's the basis for that opinion?
Well, one would like to think that he's, after all, is a believer, a man that holds true in some shape or form to the Orthodox faith, and that would always come first.
I'd like to think that too, Vladika. But what's the basis for that opinion?
Well, one can only just go purely on belief in a person, that one wouldn't enter upon such a high office if he didn't have some sort of, obviously, belief in God and the church and the faith.
Is it your opinion as a voting member that he entered into that position, or was he chosen for that position by the communist government?
Well, it must
What
be
position? What are you talking about? I'm sorry.
As a bishop.
Well, he didn't become a bishop right off the bat, as they say. I mean, he became a monk. He was a priest before that, actually. Then after, I believe he separated. He was married. He was a married priest. Then I think he and his wife separated or something like that. And then he became a monk. And then soon after that, he became a bishop, but not right away.
I understand that, but as a precursor to him becoming a bishop, was it the communist authorities that chose him to be a bishop?
Not. I would say that he was chosen by the bishops, his fellow bishops, but that the communist authority would have had to give him the okay.
Okay. Is that your opinion, or?
That's my opinion.
Okay. Now, with regard to the Synod maintains a website. He's subject to any rules or regulations.
Just normal rules and regulations of the church, obviously.
Okay, and I understand you keep referring to the rules and regulations of the church. Can you identify them for me?
Well, which ones are you referring to?
But this is for you to identify for me, because I don't know what you're ruled by.
Well, by the rules that we have in this compendium and bylaws, normal parish bylaws.
Are there any other rules?
Not that come to mind.
Do you know what's in here?
More or less.
Okay, I'm concerned about the less.
Well, regulations, statutes, laws of our church, of our ROCOR.
But you cannot. Can you tell me definitively there are no other rules and regulations that you're bound by?
Not come to mind.
Can you answer definitively whether?
Well, obviously
He's asked an answer.
Well,
I don't think he has answered. Councilman.
I don't think you like the answer. I think he's answered it 6 times.
I don't think that's true.
the canons of the church.
If you look at here, I'm going to draw your attention again to what I showed you before. And I asked you whether or not the restoration of normal ecclesiastical life and lawful supreme ecclesiastical authority in Russia was going to be restored after the signing of the Act of Canonical Union. And you'd say, you said, I would like to think so. Mm-hmm. Is that a yes?
You're asking him to give a definitive answer on a hypothetical. He's said he'd like to think it is.
He's in the position to make that decision. He's a voting member of the Synod.
But you're asking him to give a definitive answer on a hypothetical situation.
It's his position. He can give an opinion.
And he's given an opinion. You're asking if it's a definitive answer. You're asking for an opinion on a future event.
As a member of the Synod of Bishops, will this condition be restored? Is that yes or no?
I would like to think that...
Not I would like to think. Yes or no?
Well, if you allow me to elaborate or give my opinion...
No, I'd rather just have a yes or no.
Well, I would...
Objection.
I can only comment by saying that I believe that we hope that in time that we've seen a lot of improvement in the life, the ecclesiastical life in Russia since the time that the church was granted the freedoms, and it's improving, day by day, and so we would like to think that this is the ultimate, one. That at some point in the future, near future, we'd like to believe that yes, normal ecclesiastical life will be restored.
Is that a yes? It is going to be restored at that point?
I hope so.
Is that a yes?
Well, I guess that would be a yes.
You had indicated that the archives are in the Synod building about the size of this room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that a yes?
Yes.
And you said there are files on priests and there are files on different things there. Can you tell me what are in those archives in that room? What's kept there, other than the files on the priests?
Marriage certificates, baptismal certificates. What else? Minutes of the synod meetings, council meetings, various documents, resolutions, so forth.
Where are the minutes kept? In a separate file cabinet?
Yeah.
Does it have its own file cabinet?
Yeah.
Okay. And the resolutions has its own file cabinet?
That's correct. Sometimes the resolutions will be in the same file as the minutes, because if there was part of a particular meeting, then they would have the resolutions as part of those files, those documents.
Okay. And what time frame do those documents? For what time period have those documents been kept? ROCOR had issued a anathema in 1983. What did that concern?
I believe that was in regards to communism.
Have you ever read that anathema?
Yeah.
In 1983, when that was issued, did that strike that? Did that anathema ever get reaffirmed?
I don't recall whether it was or not.
Did you ever sign any document reaffirming that anathema?
Not that I can recall now.
Was there ever a synod meeting reaffirming that anathema?
There may have been, but not that I can recall. It may have been before I became a bishop.
In the past, when you became a bishop, I forget, 1996. 96. So it's your testimony right now that between 1996 and 2007, there was no reaffirming of that anathema?
Not that I can recall, no.
At any meeting?
Not that I can recall, no.
The anathema, as you describe it, against ecumenism, what would that preclude?
The one that was issued in 83, you mean?
Yes.
That would probably, it really talked about ecumenism as something that the Orthodox Church felt it could not take part in.
Okay. And part of that is saying that ROCOR could not partake in ecumenism.
The way we knew it in 1983, yes, exactly.
Okay, well, what's changed between the way you knew it in 1983?
Well, probably very little.
Can you articulate any of it? What's changed?
Well, I know that some Orthodox churches have seceded from the World Council of Churches, so that's changed.
Which Orthodox churches have?
I believe the Church of Georgia, the Orthodox Church of Georgia. I'm not sure. I know there's one or two others that may have, but I don't recall which one.
Is the Moscow Patriarchate presently a member of the World Council of Churches?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Is the World Council of Churches an ecumenical organization?
Yes.
Okay. Is participation in the World Council of Churches precluded by the anathema of 1983?
Sorry, could you repeat the question?
The anathema of 1983, does it preclude participation in the World Council of Churches?
Yes.
Now, is the Moscow Patriarchate withdrawing from the World Council of Churches prior to the execution of the Act of Canonical Communion?
I don't believe so. No.
Now, what is the effect of an anathema?
The effect of an anathema? What do you mean by effect?
What does the term mean?
Well, that someone is considered to be outside of the church, or anathematized, that is, to be proclaimed to be outside of the church, the borders of the church, teachings of the church.
Now, you just testified that the anathema of 1983 says that you're outside of the church. You also said that the anathema would prohibit participation in the World Council of Churches. You also testified that the Moscow Patriarchate is presently a member of the World Council of Churches and will remain so. Those concepts seem to be contradictory.
Well, not exactly, because as you referred to yourself earlier, in the Act, it talks about all previous declarations or resolutions to be ineffective after the signing of the Act.
Okay. So
that would, in effect, take care of the anathema or the resolution of 1983.
So in other words, the anathema of 1983 would no longer be in effect after the signing of the Act of Canonical Communion?
In regards to the Moscow Patriarchate, yes.
Okay, how about with regards to the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia?
Well, heck, we anathematize ourselves. What are you saying?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay, well, I didn't quite get your question then.
The conclusion you drew, though, was telling. But other than that, you were saying that it doesn't, well, as it applies to the Moscow Patriarchate, well, does the anathema of 1983 continue to apply to the Russian Orthodox Church outside of, will it still have any effect, or is it going to be null and void?
According to the Act, it would be the null and void.
Okay. In antiquity, has there ever been an anathema that you're aware of, proclaimed by the Orthodox Church, which becomes null and void?
If the conditions are upon which that anathema was drawn up or proclaimed would have changed or were changed, then yes.
Is it an anathema? But isn't an anathema a proclamation of something that's prohibited? So by the church? Something that will put you outside of the church?
Yeah,
as you
an
put it?
anathema declares that by one's teachings or beliefs or proclamations that one has found himself to be outside the church.
Okay. So are you saying that there is going to be a change in position of ROCOR with regard to ecumenism come the signing of the Act of Canonical Union?
No, I don't believe I don't believe that the approach to ecumenism will change. That it will still remain in effect.
But the anathema is no longer going to be in effect.
Well, according to the Act, probably not, but that doesn't mean that the attitude towards ecumenism wouldn't remain intact.